of the Real Deal Podcast, dropping in on a 29th of June 2018. I'm your host, Cyril Gerald Quinn, taking you for the next however long I want to talk. Got a lot to say actually today on this last Friday of the month of June. Humid Friday, especially in the DMV, so it's perfect time to go out there, go for a swim, hit the beach. Summertime is in full swing right now. But we begin with, of course, the most talked about athlete on the face of the universe. But before we get to that, again, where can you find us? iTunes, apple.com, Real Deal Podcast. We're on SoundCloud now, Stitcher. You can find us, of course, Facebook, at Instagram at Riddle Gerald Quinn, at Twitter on Twitter at William Gerald. So you can find us everywhere. There's no excuse not to find us, not to find me in terms of the Real Deal Podcast. But of course, again, we begin with most talked about athlete on the face of the earth, maybe ever. I think LeBron James has entered that Michael Jordan, Muhammad Ali. I think he's up there. I think he has to be considered maybe the most talked about athlete of all time. To nobody's surprise, he decides to opt out and fully become a unrestricted free agent. Good news for a couple teams, bad news for most who had any thoughts about trading him, in specific Houston and Boston. I don't think the Boston thing was ever going to be. I don't think that was ever real, to be honest with you. I don't think that was just. I think Danny Ainge came out today basically said that any blockbuster deal is more is unlikely that Boston does any deals. Boston, the most you're going to hear about Boston is finding out what they're going to do with Marcus Smart. That'll be their biggest decision. Listen, if you're Boston, what do you need? You don't need talent. You don't need any more players. Any more players. You're adding two All Stars next season. So Kyrie Irving, Gordon Hayward. So Boston's fine. This hurts Houston, of course, because Houston and Daryl Morley is, excuse me, the master of trades and moving assets. And if LeBron James could be traded, Daryl Morley could get it done. That's the one guy that certainly could absolutely get it done. So it kind of takes them out of the picture. I don't think LeBron ever seriously considered going to Houston anyway. Anyway, so now you're left with Cleveland, the Lakers, and Philadelphia. Lakers and Philadelphia, the only two teams that are viable that with cap space that LeBron James would even consider going to. But let's be honest, there's one team outside the Cleveland Cavaliers, and it is the Los Angeles Lakers. And listen, you can call me a homer, Laker fanatic. I, I've told you podcast after podcast where LeBron James is going if he leaves Cleveland. If he leaves Cleveland, and that is of course to the Los Angeles Lakers. And to me, is not a surprise. There's no mystery behind it. We've these things. It's been rumblings about it, report not just based on not just reports, but just things have been going in motion for months now in terms of LeBron James going to the Lakers. So I don't know how many hints, how many things you have to hear about to actually believe that and to actually believe that if LeBron James does leave Cleveland, he will be going to the Los Angeles Lakers. Now the big question is, will he leave Cleveland? That is the that is the $1 million question. Will he leave Cleveland? I think he is. I think he's going to leave Cleveland. I think this decision will be made quick. He decided to me, him opting out. He's on vacation right now, somewhere in the Caribbean. I believe that's what the reports that he was in the Caribbean meeting with some close advisors, deciding in terms of making a decision. Again, don't be surprised if LeBron drops a decision by Monday. I mean, don't he's not going to stretch this process out. So I expect this decision to be made quick. Other parts of this decision that could impact his decision is possibly where, of course, Kawhi Leonard will end up. Uh, there are reports that Kawhi Leonard reached out to LeBron James. Again, I don't. Who knows that to be true unless unless you have Kawhi Leonard and LeBron James' phones tapped. But there were reports that Kawhi Leonard wanted to play with LeBron James, and to me, you know, I see enough hints and I see enough clues or whatever to know that, listen, the NBA is going to have a new big three. I mean, that's all there is to it. The NBA is going to have a new big three. You're going to have LeBron, you're going to have Kawhi Leonard and Paul George on the Los Angeles Lakers. It's going to happen. It's just a matter of when it happens, not if it happens to me. I can't see a scenario. Again, I understand that Paul George is trying to stretch this thing out. Um, Trying to give Oklahoma City some love in terms of, he likes the city and saying all these nice things about Oklahoma City. Again, I'll be the most shocked man in America if Paul George doesn't end up on the Los Angeles Lakers. I think that I think this thing is going to happen. Now, I'm not saying that these guys are in cahoots with each other. I think these decisions kind of, fell into place through just circumstances. I think LeBron always wanted to go to the Lakers. To be honest with you, if he wasn't going to stay in Cleveland, Kawhi Leonard thing, I think this is again just circumstances. I don't think this is a situation where, Miami, like in terms of 2010 when you had not Bosh, because originally it was supposed to be Wade, LeBron, and Carmelo Anthony. That was supposed to be the original big three for Miami. People forget about that, but we know that Wade and LeBron and Carmelo discussed, and even Bosh discussed going to Miami back in 2008. Okay, 2008 in terms of when they played the Olympics together. So that was something that was in the works in years in advance. This was not the case for this big three that's gonna come about with the Lakers. Um, Again, circumstances. I mean, no, who saw the San Antonio thing with Kawhi Leonard coming like this time last year? Nobody, like that wasn't. It wasn't. That wasn't. Nobody was talking about that this time last year. How quickly that thing fell apart. So the NBA is going to have a new big three. I think it's going to be sooner than later. I think it could happen as early as Monday, Tuesday. I think this thing is going to happen quickly. You've heard both LeBron and Paul George have opted out of their contracts. They are both unrestricted free agents. Also, and I have to mention, Kevin Durant has also opted out, but we know that Kevin Durant is going to be a Golden State Warrior for the foreseeable future. I don't know if he signs. I think he'll sign. I don't think he'll sign a long-term deal, but 3 to 4 years, maybe 3 years with an opt-out, a player option in the fourth year, maybe something like that. But Kevin Durant's going to at super max money. Kevin Durant's going to get his money with Golden State, but NBA is going to have a new big three, and what you're going to have is you're going to have a bunch of people bitching and complaining about this is not good for the league. Um, how can my team compete? So on and so on. Listen, this is a part of the evolution of basketball, and I heard I heard some local radio hosts in my area, DMV, talking about the good old days, and basically criticizing LeBron for going to a super team or making the moves that he made in terms of going to Miami, in terms of possibly now leaving Cleveland to try to go team up with uh, a couple of the All Stars. And to me, if you're a part of the NBA right now, this is what you have to deal with. This is part of the evolution of the league. Everybody talks about these super teams. Remember this about the super teams. Let's think about it. Let's talk Golden State for now. The reason why Golden State is a super team is because they drafted Steph Curry, Klay Thompson, and Draymond Green. None of those guys were projected to be franchise players. coming out of college. Steph Curry, maybe the highest projection, maybe he could be a possible All-Star. That was the best. That was the that was his ceiling. Maybe he could be an all. Maybe, not even he's going to be an All-Star. Maybe. Klay Thompson, Draymond Green. Draymond Green was a second round pick. So they draft that team, make a good couple good pickups. Iguodala, Andrew Bogut, Sean Livingston, and next thing you know they're going back to back championships. They win a championship, then win 73 games. Excuse me, 74 games. Go 74 and 8, 73 and 9, and break the Bulls record before losing to Cleveland in the finals in 2016. But the only reason they were in a position to get Kevin Durant was because of their drafting. Okay, the only reason the Lakers are in a position to get Kawhi Leonard is because they drafted Kyle Kuzma and Brandon Ingram. That's the only reason the Lakers are in a position to get Kawhi Leonard. So it still comes down, like, despite the emergence of these super teams, it still comes down to draft. You still have to draft. Like, you still have to draft. Now Boston caught a break. Kevin McHale, ex-Celtic, was in charge of Minnesota, and he basically said, made a deal with Danny Ainge, one of his buddies, and basically said, here's Kevin Garnett. But again, there's no big three if they don't draft Paul Pierce. How many teams passed up on Paul Pierce in that 2000 and not 2000, excuse me, in that 98 draft, 98 draft? I mean, Paul Pierce, looking back on it, Paul Pierce probably should have been up top in that draft. Paul Pierce was the best player in that draft. That was that Antoine Jameson, Vince Carter, Michael Olor-Candy, the Olor-Candy draft. Paul Pierce, excuse me, Dirt Nowitzki, and Paul Pierce should have been 1 and 2 in that draft. But it still comes down to drafting. So if you want if your team wants to get better, if you want a team to contend, you got to draft. You got to hit on these draft picks. Even in the NBA, yes, you need star players, but you need draft picks, because draft picks are the most valuable assets in the league. It is a cheap asset that you can use in trade bait, that you can use to trade. Draft picks don't cost any money. They're not making any real money, so they don't count a lot against your salary cap. So that's one of the reasons why the Lakers are in a position to get 2 max free agents, because they have a bunch of draft picks who are not getting paid any money. And that's despite having a bad contract with Luol Deng. So, listen, we are in the age of a super team. You got to evolve with the times. That's all there is to it. You don't like the 3-point shot, you can not like the 3-point shot. I'm not in love with a million 3-pointers being taken in a game, but the bottom line is you're not building a contending team that can't shoot threes. It's just not going to happen. So, LeBron's going to do what he does. I think LeBron James will be a Los Angeles Laker. I think it'll be sooner than later. I don't think this decision will be stretched out. I think Kawhi Leonard, listen, and as far as Kawhi Leonard goes, and again, everybody, I'm talking to people, I'm saying this is going to happen. I'm telling them this is going to happen. Like, no, this is going to happen. You know why it's going to happen? Because San Antonio has not become the best organization in all the sports for the past 20 years by being stupid. The Brandon Ingram, Kyle Kuzma, #1 draft pick, that package is better than any package that anybody in the league can come up with. And it really is not even close. It's really not close when you think about it. The Sixers cannot come up with a package. Covington, Sarge, and the #1 pick it's not the same package. Not as good as the offer. The Boston's not going to trade Tatum. So they're out of the mix as far as that goes, and they don't need the Kawhi Leonard. If you're Boston, you can start talking about Kawhi's injuries. Like they can afford to talk about the fact that Kawhi hasn't wasn't healthy last year. You don't need to take any risks if you're Boston. Lakers, different story. Lakers, we are in a position where you haven't made the playoffs in 5 years. You are you gotta kind of risk taking a flyer on Kawhi Leonard. You're in that position right now where you probably just he's worth the risk. He's that talented. We're talking about a guy when healthy is a top three player in the league. So I'm not convinced that a quad injury is going. He's all of a sudden now never going to be healthy again based on a quad injury. He was misdiagnosed by San Antonio, and they misdiagnosed the injury, and he never got healthy over the course of a year, and he ended up making a business decision. I'm not knocking him for making a business decision. So that is where we're at, where we stand right now in terms of free agency with the big two, LeBron and Paul George. Kawhi soon to be moved. Kevin Durant is going to re-sign with Golden State. We know that. As far as this report that came out that yesterday that LeBron reached out to Kevin Durant to join the Lakers, what is I mean, that would be a power move. I mean, that would be the ultimate power move. So it does not, the, would not surprise me by any stretch of imagination if that report is true. That if LeBron reached out to Kevin Durant. So again, those reports came out yesterday. That would not surprise me in the least bit. And why not? why why not if you're LeBron James? Because if you're LeBron James, you're still the best player. You're the best player. I mean, you're the best player you're going to consider yourself to be the best player on that team. And Kevin Durant it's Kevin Durant. I mean, why? Like I'm saying, why not? If, you know, so if I'm LeBron, listen, you're trying to beat Golden State. You need star power. There's no bigger star in the league outside of LeBron James other than Kevin Durant. This is what the NBA is. I mean, these guys are going to play with each other. These star players, super teams. This is where the league is at right now. It is part of the evolution of the NBA. You can either love it or hate it. But I'm not going to get to a point to where I'm not going to watch basketball or continue to talk about the old days. The old days are the old days. There's a famous line in The Wire, season 4. Slim Charles said, he's talking to Bodie. Bodie, of course, is bent out of shape. He has to work under Marlowe or with Marlowe. It's like, man, if this was the old days. And Slim Charles said, what they say about the old days. That's why they call them the old days. Uh, let's deal with today. So if you're a fan of the NBA, forget about the 90s, forget about the 80s, forget about the 70s. It's 2018. Let's deal with 2018. Just getting started here on this latest edition of the Real Deal Podcast. This podcast will be recorded. We're recording this podcast, of course, on a Friday. This podcast will go up probably Saturday morning. I'll probably put it up Saturday morning on Blog Talk Radio, so you'll be able to see it. If you're from my Blog Talk Radio audience, this podcast will go up on early Saturday morning. But for YouTube, if you're a fan of YouTube and you want to see it immediately, you can of course go to my YouTube channel, Real Deal, look up Real Deal Podcast, and not immediately, but at least anywhere from 15 to 20 minutes, this podcast will go up on my my YouTube channel, and of course I will put it out on Facebook. I'll put it out on Facebook, Twitter, just to name a few of my outlets and platforms. And listen, and that's the thing about evolution too. Evolution as well. And it's been a big theme with me throughout the course of this past year about just evolving with the times. 10 years ago, there was no podcasting, didn't even exist. 10 to 15 years ago, I think podcasting came out what around 2007, 2006. I know my podcast started in 2008 with Blog Talk Radio. You know, for somebody like me who has a lot of opinions on sports and pop culture, you know, how else would I have been able to get my opinion out there? Now you have YouTube, you have Blog Talk Radio, you have all kinds. You can get your opinions out there throughout Facebook Live, Instagram, that's some stuff. Now a lot of stuff you may not bother want to hear, but again, a part of the evolution, a part of evolving with the times, a part of technology. We gotta, you either it's a famous saying, you either adapt or die. It's just that simple. Earlier this week, the world of music lost a legendary figure, whether you want to, call him a legend or not, he was, and that of course is Joe Jackson. And Joe Jackson died of pancreatic cancer. 89 years old, had a number of illnesses over the course of his last years of life, and think about it. He died the way that many of us hope we can die, and that's with late '80s, early '90s. Okay, we're back here. We had a little died like many of us probably wish we can die, minus the pancreatic cancer. I'm sure nobody wants to be taken out by cancer, but we won't. Eventually, we won't have a choice in terms of what what takes us out and what doesn't take us out. But he died with loved ones around his bed, friends, close family members, and I know what the perception of Joe Jackson was, but the reality in terms of what was accomplished by Joe Jackson cannot be denied. Despite all the reports and everything that that people thought that went on with the Jackson family and Michael and Janet and with the Jackson family in general. The bottom line is, listen, you developed and cultivated two of the biggest music artists of all time in Michael Jackson and Janet Jackson. The Jackson Five was one of the biggest groups over the course of the '70s, one of the biggest groups in the country. Period. The man, you think about this. You're talking about a man who had 10 kids, okay? 10 kids and lived in one room. 10 kids with one room. And all of his kids turned out to be relatively successful. And instead of, we look at, we talk about abuse. And I think what happened was, I think when all this stuff started coming out about the abuse and the beatings and the things of that nature, I think it was during that time, I want to say mid 80s, early 90s. It was during the time where we were about to turn the corner on it not being accepted to beat kids, to beat our children. So all those reports and all that stuff kind of coincided with just a shift of what we as society believed in terms of how we should discipline our kids. Listen, you can say, when you're dealing with success, when you're dealing with the industry, entertainment industry, when you're dealing with, look at Richard Williams and the criticism that he dealt with in terms of how he handled Venus and Serena, all kinds of criticism. You're holding them, you hold them out, you're keeping them down. You don't know anything about tennis. You're keeping them out of this tournament, keeping them out of that tournament, and all they have gone on to do is go on to have two of the greatest careers of all time. Serena Williams is maybe the greatest female athlete of all time. Certainly, I think, in my opinion, the greatest female athlete of all time. One of the greatest athletes of all time, male or female, that I've seen in my lifetime. And Venus Williams has had a Hall of Fame career. one winner of 7 Grand Slams. So again, you cannot argue with the success of the Williamses, the Jacksons, the Kennedys. I'll toss Joe Kennedy in that conversation. Look how hard he pushed his kids. Now, his wasn't of the physical abuse that Joe Jackson got accused of. I would say Joe Kennedy was more of the psychological abuse with the Kennedys, and how vigorous he was in terms of pushing them. And senator, president, you know, Joe, like John F. Kennedy Jr. There's no question in my mind. John F. JFK Jr., who tragically died in a plane accident back in '99, would have become possibly become the next president of the United States, or a president, or somebody who would have been, or senator. He was headed towards that. He was on his way to being that. There's no question in my mind. But regardless, you look at family dynasties. It all it's not going to be all strawberries and cake. It's not like you're not like the person who pushes that envelope for meeting that level of success. I can even go Bear Bryant in Alabama football. You ever see the Junction Boys? Go watch the Junction Boys, or go read. No, better yet, read the Junction Boys. But as soon as the day Bear Bryant died, to this day, all his players love him. And with Joe Jackson, I haven't heard a bad thing said about him by a family member um, in the last week. I haven't heard anything said about him by a family member in the last week. Not one. So again, we gotta sometimes separate perception from reality. Again, none of us knows what went on behind closed doors because we were not in the house. We were not in the Jackson household. But one thing that's been consistent to me is everything good. It seems to me like everything great that happened to Michael Jackson or Janet Jackson, because those are the two biggest stars, it was because of them overcoming Joe Jackson, not because of what Joe Jackson did for them. Everything that happened, everything that anything that negatively occurred in those two lives, it was because of the traumatic, stress and torture and abuse that Joe Jackson that occurred by the hands of Joe Jackson. Can't have it both ways. You can't, like, if you're gonna blame him for you know the stress, if you're gonna blame him for their negative actions, then you gotta give him credit for being two of the great music artists, two of the biggest pop artists in the history of music. Can't have it both ways. So again, Joe Jackson passed away, of course, age of 89. And again, before you make a judgment, before you even, forget about what the media says. I would just listen to what the family members are saying. I would go out there and just look at the facts. Look at what he produced, along with his wife, the still living Katherine Jackson. She has, again, not to give Joe Jackson all the credit. She, it took both of them. Both of them were, of course, a part of raising those 10 kids and producing, again, two of the greatest musicians of all time, and Michael Jackson, the late Michael Jackson, and also Janet Jackson as well. Real Deal Podcast here on this Friday, last day, not the last day, second to last day of June. June, of course, we will begin a new month, of course, Sunday, July 1st. You had Power premiering this weekend, premiering on Sunday. I got a couple Power predictions. We'll talk more about that over the course of the later in the podcast. Something happened in the NBA this week and did not get much recognition. And it's very important. Could be historic in terms of coaching, and in terms of something that something that we haven't seen, that we didn't think we would ever see, but something that could be coming soon. And that is a woman coach in one of the four major professional sports could be coming soon. And the reason I say that is because Becky Hammon was named top assistant of the San Antonio Spurs. Now, this is why this is a big deal. It's a big deal because it's one thing to be an assistant coach. Like some of these NBA teams have most have multiple assistants. Most of them have a guy, offensive person, defensive person. You know, so that's two. So most teams have anywhere from two to three assistant coaches. But to be named the top assistant, that's the separation. Those are the guys. Those are, I keep saying guys. I just say people. Those are the coaches that will get the most looks at becoming head coaches in the future. Like David Fisdale for years was the top assistant with Miami. Or was recognized as the top assistant with Miami under Spoelstra for years. And when jobs came up, David Fisdale's name would be one of the names on the list of hot coaching candidates. Now, Becky Hammon obviously is respected, highly respected around the league. Anybody that works for the Spurs is going to be respected regardless. I mean, if you're a San Antonio, you're going to get a job somewhere, whether it's a head coaching job or assistant coaching job. Anybody that's been connected to the San Antonio tree has have gotten jobs in front office, coaching wise. So that's a big deal because Greg Popovich is 69 years old. Who knows how long he could coach? Another year, 2 years, 20. There've been some reports that Popovich won't coach past 2020. So to me, in the end, there's no more progressive league than the NBA as far as their LGBT activism, as far as having players come out and protest, having players speak out. The NBA is probably the most, by far and away, the most progressive league out of the four major sports leagues. So I could easily see a situation where Popovich retires one day out of nowhere. Popovich just goes and says, you know what, I'm done, I'm good. I'm taking my 5 rings and go, focus on my wine business. And Becky Hammon becomes the next coach of the San Antonio Spurs. Telling you, don't be the least bit surprised if Becky Hammon becomes the next head coach of the San Antonio Spurs. The Spurs, and again, the Spurs are an organization that you know kind of does their own thing. Like the Spurs have their own system. They have the Spurs way. They're not going to follow. They don't care about They don't care about what you and I think about the hire. They're not going to go by what Joe the radio host thinks. They're going to do what the Spurs do. And again, the Spurs are an organization. They could have recruited. They could have went out there and went out there and got any assistant coach, top flight assistant coach they wanted to come in and take that job. That is a coveted job. To be considered a top assistant under Greg Popovich is as coveted of an assistant coaching job as you can have in the NBA. It really is, because it is the Spurs. So that's a big deal. I know it kind of went somewhat by the way, not underreported, but
free agencies coming up. We're coming off, this LeBron. Everybody's talking about that, and so it kind of went not so much underreported, but it's a very big deal in terms of something that could be historic in terms of the four major sports. In terms of a woman coaching one of the four majors, a woman being a head coach in one of the four major sports, and again, it will not be easy to deal with today's player, and I don't know how she would do. I know it's coaching these guys in the NBA is hard. It's more difficult coaching sports in general because how much money are in professional sports than it has ever been, but especially with the NBA coaching these players. These players are as powerful. To be NBA players are the most powerful athletes in the world in terms of the four major sports by far. Out of all the four major sports, the NBA players have more power than any of the athletes in any of the four major sports. And it's really not even close, to be honest with you. So that could be something that could be happening. That could be on the horizon as Greg Popovich winds down his long tenure with the Spurs. And again, I expect them. I can't see Popovich going through a rebuild. I just don't. I don't see Popovich. They're gonna lose Kawhi Leonard. You know, sooner than later. It's gonna be sooner, in my opinion. But eventually, Kawhi Leonard is not going to be on the Spurs. You're talking about, David Robinson, Tim Duncan, Kawhi Leonard. That was what Greg Popovich envisioned, him finishing his career competing for championships with Kawhi Leonard leading the way. This changes that narrative, and to me speeds up his retirement date as far as I'm concerned. So you had that going on in the NBA. As far as the baseball goes, you have two major series going on tonight. One of those already started. The Phillies got by Washington 4-3. I think this is an important series for the Nationals to kind of like get themselves in the right direction as we near the All-Star break that's a couple weeks away. Phillies playing well. I know they dropped 2 out of 3 to an excellent Yankees team, but regardless, the Phillies are a legit team, and it's become evident to me that the Phillies are not going anywhere for the foreseeable future. They have young prospects, they have young talent, they are in line to possibly get Manny Machado, good young pitching. The Phillies, listen, the Nationals are going to have to fight tooth and nail to win that division. Now, again, I don't believe in Atlanta. Not sold on the Atlanta Braves, but I am sold into came to DC last weekend and really had their way with the Nationals. And if not for a miracle comeback down 6-2 in that Sunday night game, would have swept the Nationals. And now now they come in. Philly, Nationals go down to Philly, drop game one of a 4-game series. You also have Red Sox Yankees tonight, two of the three best teams in baseball. I think Houston's the best team in baseball right now, but the Red Sox and Yankees are right there, both playing good baseball. So you'll have that going on. So those are the two things to watch out for with the baseball. In terms of soccer, the soccer gets a World Cup takes a day off before the round of 16 begins tomorrow. Looking forward to that. A lot of big stars. You have um, Ronaldo, Messi. You have England in the mix. You have Colombia, Jaime Rodriguez. You have a number of big time players in the round of 16 knockout round um, in the World Cup. So it should be exciting. A lot of big time teams. You still have France is in there. You still have, of course, the big upset is Germany not being a part of the second weekend, not the second weekend, but the round 16. They rarely get eliminated early in World Cup play, but it continues that curse of the defending World Cup champion. Saw something like the last three World Cup champions have not made it to the second round. Brazil is still in the mix. You have Belgium is still in the mix. So again, just about all the top players and top teams are still alive for the World Cup. So that's certainly it should be exciting moving forward. We could be headed towards a Messi Ronaldo quarterfinal, and so be looking forward. That would be something to see. Though, so Messi kind of has redeemed himself a little bit because it would have been brutal for Messi to go out in basically the first round. It would have been that would have been tough to take for if you're Messi going back to Argentina, having and especially having Ronaldo having the kind of World Cup that he's having. So he kind of got taken off the hook with that with Argentina advancing. So now Messi has a chance to rewrite his past failures of in terms of the World Cup. So you have that going on. But of course, this weekend, Sunday, Power Season 5. Looking forward to it. You have Kanan, Ghost, and Tommy all hooking up together. As far as predictions goes, you never know with this show. I will say this: I do believe that Kane is gonna get killed. I do believe that because I just feel like Tasha's gonna realize how close Kanan and Tyreek are, and I feel like if you're Tasha, you can't have this guy who you wanted to kill to begin. Remember, Tasha wanted Kanan dead to begin with. Like she wanted him dead. Ghost had him set up and thrown in jail. Tasha wanted him killed. I think once Tasha gets a sense of how close Tyreek and Kanan are, she's gonna take him out. I really believe that. Um, I don't. Dre might survive. Everybody thinks Dre's gonna get taken out. I'm not so sure about that. I'm not so sure that Dre doesn't survive this season. So yeah, that. So that'll be coming on Sunday night for you. So just for those of you who can't wait till Sunday 8 p.m. Of course, you have the Stars app or on demand 12:01. I think they'll probably be doing that this year, where that episode will be available 12:01 Sunday morning. For those of you who can't wait till Sunday night, they've been showing the marathon. They've been showing a marathon a season every weekend. So this year, I think this Sunday they'll be on season. They're on season 4. Looking forward to that. Snowfall is coming out still a couple weeks away. Snowfall. So that looking forward to that show. So a lot of summer shows are starting to come out in the next week or so, next couple of weeks. Insecure. I think Insecure comes back. When is Insecure? August 12th. Yeah, same day as Ballers, which I don't watch anymore. I don't watch Ballers anymore. So Insecure comes back August 12th. Of course, we began the program talking about the NBA and the inevitable that the NBA is going to have a new big three. It's going to be Kawhi. It's going to be LeBron James, Kawhi Leonard, and Paul George. That will be Los Angeles Lakers. LeBron, both LeBron and Paul George opted out of their deals as expected. Opted out of their deals. Can you imagine if you're LeBron James? Can you imagine walking away from $35.6 million? $35.6 million. Nah, I'm good. I don't need that. But he's gonna be more than compensated in terms of his next deal, whether it's be with the Los Angeles Lakers or with the Cleveland Cavaliers. I believe it's going to be with the Los Angeles Lakers. Again, all roads, all hints, everything that to me has been um, leaning towards him becoming a Laker. I'm not convinced that LeBron James wouldn't go to the Lakers even if they did not get assurances from Kawhi Leonard and Paul George that they would be joining him. Like everybody's convinced that LeBron is joining the Lakers to team up with two other stars. I'm not convinced that that's the case. I think that's a narrative that we want to paint, but I'm not convinced that LeBron is just not going. To me, LeBron's at a place in his career where I think LeBron recognizes that his legacy is set. Of course, does he want to win championships? Sure, he wants to win championships. He wants to win more championships. But I feel like if he wanted to win all the MAG championships, he'd go to Golden State. Try to get to Golden State. But I think LeBron wants to play. I genuinely believe that LeBron wants to play in LA. If he's not going to stay in Cleveland, he's going to LA. So I think that move is going to happen. I think Cleveland. He's trying to get He's trying to get players to go to Cleveland. No one's coming to Cleveland, and I don't see LeBron staying in Cleveland without another star player coming to Cleveland. I don't see. He came back to Cleveland. He accomplished everything and then some, in terms of bringing that franchise their first and only championship. I think he's done as much as he can possibly do from a basketball standpoint for Cleveland. And he'll still, again, I understand he has foundations, he has community stuff that he's done there, and he's done a lot of wonderful things in the Cleveland, Ohio area, northern Ohio area. So that stuff will continue on. Even he could be in New Zealand, and that stuff will continue on. So I think that people try to read into LeBron's just not all about rings. That's the thing about LeBron you have to realize. He's not a guy who's ring chasing. Going to LA is not ring chasing going to LA. Going to LA is the next phase of his life from a business standpoint, from a movie production standpoint, and it just so happened that it just happens to be one of the most famous franchises in the world in terms of sports, in terms of Los Angeles Lakers. That is like an afterthought. The fact that he's going to be a Laker, I don't think he cares about being a Laker. He's reached a level to where he is his own trademark. He's LeBron James. It doesn't matter what team he plays for. He doesn't it, Playing for the Lakers, playing for the Celtics does not enhance his legacy or his stature as a athlete, as a basketball player. It doesn't. LeBron is his own. LeBron. Is his own entity. He's LeBron James. So it's not about that. It's about moving into the next phase of his life. The next narrative. He's all about narratives. The next narrative of his life. And to me, there's not a better narrative than going to Hollywood with his production companies, possibly bringing along, possibly playing with Kawhi Leonard and Paul George and taking on the Golden State Warriors for super team versus super team. So to me, I see it as a foregone conclusion. And again, if you don't believe me, just go look at the facts, look at the deal, look at the packages that the Lakers can put on the table to get Kawhi Leonard versus any other package that any other team can put on the table. Just be objective. Just be objective. You don't be an anti-Laker. Somebody, oh, the Lakers can't do it. Don't be a Laker hater. Just be objective. Be objective. I feel like, again, if I didn't think LeBron was going to the Lakers, I would sit here and tell you LeBron's not going to the Lakers. If I didn't believe it, I would not hesitate. There have been other, LaMarcus Aldridge, Carmelo Anthony, LeBron James in the past 3 years who have been free agents. I never believed that any one of those guys, under the current regime and the current circumstances, were coming to the Lakers. I never believed it in my life. Okay, didn't believe it whatsoever. That Carmelo Anthony, that LeBron James, that Kevin Durant, that any of those guys, again, LaMarcus Aldridge, those free agents in the last 3 or 4 years were ever going to come to the Lakers. Not for 1 second did I believe it. But now the Lakers have young talent. They have Magic Johnson. They are in as primed and poised to get to put this thing together and make themselves relevant again in terms of the basketball landscape as they have been since Jim Buss was fired. So we'll see what happens. Again, I expect this decision to be made quickly. I don't expect for it to drag out. So we'll see what happens. That's going to wrap it up for this latest edition of the Real Deal Podcast. Have a great weekend. I'm out.